Tom, can you lead us in the pledge, sir?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in Ukraine, and those poor people that lost their lives, and those that have lost everything in the fires in Hawaii. Thank you. Katie, can you lead us in the American Creed, please?
Sure. The American's Creed. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and defend it against all enemies.
Thank you. Paul, public comment.
Hi, Brian McCauley, 193 Asquatuck Ridge Road. As many of you know, I'm a member of the Board of Education, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. But I will just give a little background. I ran for the board 8 years ago because I was very interested in our town schools. I'm a teacher. I've made my profession in education. And honestly, I think it's a noble profession, and I'm happy to keep doing it. But when I ran for the Board of Ed, I had no interest in getting into politics because I don't understand why New Milford doesn't work the way New York State does and the way Washington does, where the elections are not during the heat of the political season, and even actually the elections are apolitical. When you sit on a Board of Ed, you don't actually necessarily know the person you're sitting next to, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. That's how Washington works. And so, you know, if I could snap my fingers and like kind of make a change, something I would, because I personally believe that politics don't have a place in education. I mean, obviously there's money involved and there's finances involved, and that's where the politics gets in. But as far as educational decisions, but that's my personal opinion. What I'm really here to talk about is, now that I am, you know, an elected official and I have been, I've seen things getting, I don't know, you know, everybody here at this table is a volunteer, and I thank you for your volunteerism, and I know you're elected. And everybody who gets elected to the town comes to the table because they want to do what's right for their town. I want to do what's right for the schools. You want to, you know, take part of all that stuff that I don't want to take part of, which is the political aspects of it. But what I see, and it really has bothered me, it's bothered me for a long time, is that, you know, everybody at the table is there for the same reason. And I think everybody at the table should be treated with that level of decorum. You know, you can have a meeting where you disagree with people and you can be kind to them, or you can at least disagree without being demeaning or without condescending or talking down to people. And I see that everywhere, you know, and in my opinion, you know, you get involved in small town politics. You know, I grew up in a divided household. You know, part of my house was Republican, part of my house was Democrat. You learn to live with each other, you know. You have some incredible fights. I can tell you about Thanksgivings that went horrible. But you learn to live with each other, you know, because you have to, because you have the same common goal, to be part of a family. You guys have the same common goal to be, to make New Milford the greatest town in America, you know, and I love New Milford. I've been here for longer than I've lived anywhere else, you know, and I don't plan to move anytime soon, except for when I retire and I want to go somewhere warm. But, you know, I just want to see that. I don't like even attending these meetings because I see condescending. I see people talking down to each other, and it's just like everybody at the table is there for the same reason. And that's what bothers me about national politics. I won't go on into that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brian.
No.
Okay. Katie?
Okay, we'll move to recognition of our town's lifeguards. Need a hand?
To the council and to those in the audience and those that are viewing tonight. First of all, I cannot thank our lifeguards enough for everything they've done since I know I've been mayor. I've gone, I've walked, came, check out how you guys are doing, and I'm amazed at what you guys do, especially at our beach, especially during challenging times. And you guys got to put up with sometimes, some upset individuals, those that don't know how to swim but think they can swim. And you guys just do amazing work with poise, dignity, and true American spirit. And Milford proud, so I gotta stay strong. What I'd like to do is I want to thank our Park and Rec Director, Dan Calhoun, and we got Bram here, who's our Park and Rec Events Director, and I said, hey, let's, do some achievement awards, some honor awards for some of our lifeguards. They were just like, absolutely, we should do that, and we need to pay you guys the real recognition that you guys deserve. So without being too much on my soapbox, I want to thank you guys so much. So I'm going to read these. They're not in any random order. And when I call your name up, if you could come up. And we have some from the town. And then State Representative Buckby actually has, for some, a state recognition, but unfortunately he could not make it tonight. But I want to give those out as well as Senator Harding. He was trying to make it up here as well. So the first one is to Connor. Connor. This achievement is on behalf of the town of New Milford. We present this certificate of recognition to you for your dedication as a lifeguard at Lendeming Park for the last 7 years. You rely on your training to know what to do and your ability to recognize and act in life-threatening situations. And your vigilance ensures that our patrons are in safe hands. And thank you so much for that save of that young person. Outstanding, amazing. The town wants to thank you.
I sure can. This is from the state of Connecticut, Connor. The General Assembly. It's an official citation introduced by Representative Bill Buckby, Representative Cindy Harrison, Representative Pat Callahan, and Senior Senator, Stephen Harding. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Connor Caradat. In recognition of your heroic bravery, a hero does not think of themselves before acting. They only consider the consequences of not acting at all. You displayed an act of courage and selflessness by saving a young girl who was having difficulty swimming back to shore. We congratulate you and offer our sincere appreciation and gratitude. The entire membership extends very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. On the 25th day of July, 2023, and it's signed by President Pro Tem Martin Looney, Speaker of the House Matt Ritter, and Stephen Harding, I can't believe that, Secretary of State, who needs a penmanship lesson. So, there you go, Connor. Congratulations.
Lauren. Lord, on behalf of the town of New Milford, we hereby present this certificate of recognition to you, Lauren, for your dedication as a lifeguard at Lendeming for 3 years. You rely on your training to know what to do, and your experience enables you to act responsibly in performing that outstanding save. Keep up the great work, and we thank you on behalf of the town. Outstanding.
All right, Lauren. State of Connecticut, the General Assembly. This is an official citation introduced by Representatives Buckby, Harrison, Callahan, and Senator Stephen Harding. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Lauren Gianos. In recognition of your heroic bravery, a hero does not think of themselves before acting. They only consider the consequences of not acting at all. You displayed an act of courage and selflessness by saving a life while performing your duties as a lifeguard. We congratulate you and offer our sincere appreciation and gratitude. This is from the entire membership, who extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success on this 7th day of August 2023. Again, signed by all those people.
Cited on behalf of the town of New Milford, we present a certificate of recognition to you for your dedication as a lifeguard at Landemic Park for 3 years. You relied on your training to know what to do and have a proven track record with multiple saves at Landemic Park, of which we cannot thank you enough. And we are going to recognize when additional help is needed, you're there. So keep up the great work, and again, thank you. Outstanding.
The State of Connecticut, the General Assembly, official citation introduced by Representatives Buckby, Harrison, Callahan, and Senator Stephen Harding. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Aidan Mulligan Brown. In recognition of your heroic bravery, a hero does not think of themselves before acting. They only consider the consequences of not acting at all. You displayed an act of courage and selflessness by saving a life when performing your duties as a lifeguard. We congratulate you and offer our sincere appreciation and gratitude. The entire membership of the General Assembly wishes you best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. On the 7th day of August 2023, signed again by August.
On behalf of the town of New Milford, we hereby present you this certificate of recognition. And this is to your dedication. As a lifeguard at Landemic Park for 3 years, you relied on your training to know what to do and your ability to recognize and act in a life-threatening situation, and your attention to detail ensured that we prevented a potential drowning before it began, which is outstanding. Keep up the great work, and we thank you.
The State of Connecticut General Assembly has an official citation for you, introduced by Representatives Buckby, Harrison, Callahan, and Senator Stephen Harding. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Bryce Matthew. In recognition of your heroic bravery, a hero does not think of themselves before acting. They only consider the consequences of not acting at all. You displayed an act of courage and selflessness by saving a life while performing your duties as a lifeguard. We congratulate you and we offer our sincere appreciation and gratitude. The entire membership of this General Assembly extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success on this 7th day of August 2023. And there you go, Bryce. Congrats.
Sarah, on behalf of the town of New Milford, we present you the certificate of recognition for your dedication as a lifeguard at Landemic Park for 2 years. You relied on your training to know what to do, and your ability to identify swimmers with potential difficulties allowed you to be prepared and to respond to a patron who was in distress. Great job. Keep up the work. Outstanding. Thank you very much.
State of Connecticut General Assembly, this is an official citation introduced by Representatives Buckby, Harrison, Callahan, and Senator Stephen Harding. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to you, Sarah Bundy. In recognition of your heroic bravery, a hero does not think of themselves before acting. They only consider the consequences of not acting at all. You displayed an act of courage and selflessness by saving a life when performing your duties as a lifeguard. We congratulate you and offer our sincere appreciation and gratitude. The entire membership of the General Assembly extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success on the 7th day of August 2023. Congratulations to you.
If we could all rise and give them a standing ovation for what they do each and every day. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Okay, all right, after all that, now we'll move to the boring. Item number 5A and 5B are consent agenda. I'd like to move that we approve the prior minutes and the tax collector items.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Any questions? Yes. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, good idea.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks. So cute.
There was just one thing I wanted to add, which was that during the discussion about the tax abatement, in both instances, it was, you know, the financials were detailed out. So if those could just be reflected in the minutes. So for example, in the, it was in the minutes, you've got the first one when we were talking about the $214,000 abatement, but then the second one, the 1.7 million assessed, the $43,000 annual abatement, that information's not in the minutes, so I think it's, yeah?
It's all attached.
But in the minutes,
all
like
the
just,
documents are in the minutes. It's all the filing templates.
right, but in the actual text of the minutes, that's all. Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Okay, mayor's comments, number 5.
Thank you, Katie. Starting on the 20th of this month is going to be the Connecticut Tax-Free Week Back-to-School Shopping. So that's from the 20th to the 26th. And that's for anything purchases of clothing or footwear costing less than $100 per item will not be subject to the Connecticut sales and use taxes. So it's a great time for those, especially shopping for their school kids or those going to college. A great time to take advantage of the Connecticut Back to School Week. I want to continue to talk about the opportunity to still finish up the New Milford Ice Cream Crawl that we have going on. It's been very successful, and if you still want to participate, you can still do so. And that's go to All Aboard Pizzas, The Sonic, Carvel, Kimberly Farm, Grass Roots, Tasty Waves, and you've got Villa Marine and Pasta Shop. You go to all those locations, make sure you keep your receipt, take a selfie to hashtag ice cream crawl NMCT, and that qualifies you, and you can qualify for a wonderful t-shirt that we have.
And
It's
that
been
goes
so
until
successful.
August 25th,
25th, yes ma'am,
so you got plenty of time.
absolutely.
Jog.
Great.
Have a cone. Jog, have a cone.
Also is the New Milford Police Academy, or New Milford Police Department is having their Citizens Academy program, and that is going to be starting again on the, let's see, they're just taking applications, and the topics of instruction are dispatch operations, patrol services, the K-9 unit services, that's always a popular one, forensics, maritime unit, dive team, aviation, traffic enforcement, and more. And for more information, you can call the New Milford Police Department, 860-355-3133 for more information. Also, a pretty cool congratulations to Jackson Olson. And if you don't know what the Savannah Bananas are, that's a very famous, and they call it Banana Ball, baseball type team, very, very well received, and our own Jackson Olson placed third base for them. They were playing, I believe, tonight in Hartford. It was sold out. But just pretty amazing. We have somebody from New Milford that's actually on this kind of world-famous team. So I think that's outstanding. Excellent for sure, absolutely. So that's pretty cool. We had the back-to-school backpack program that was done by the United Way. So Katie, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the success of the backpack program so far this year.
It was a big success. Over 250 children received a book bag full of all kinds of things, pens, pencils, notebooks, and a gift card to do some shopping on tax-free week. So it was, we'd always like to be able to do more. There is a wait list, so I'm trying to go through that and maybe get some items out there. We work through the social service office, so, but I thank everybody. The people who donated notebooks, if you donated pens, some people donated money, and volunteers. It was, I have to say, Vision Engineering, I just want to put a plug in. They sent some people last year, and they sent some people this year, and they were a house of fire helping to sort and pack, and it was just really nice. And, Westcon Septic Sewer also.
Outstanding.
Aces.
Thank you, Katie. Next, congratulations to the Milford Senior Center Silver Cornstalls Cornhole team as they placed fourth statewide in the cornhole tournament, and they were in the B division. So congratulations to the team. Wishing them much success in their next endeavor. And want to thank the Village Center of the Arts as they were doing their Harrybrook Park, or actually, what's the name of the book? Thank you, Harry Potter. I get that.
Harrybrook Park.
So they're doing they were going to go down to Harrybrook. So they were doing a wonderful thing for their summer school. So they had asked if I could be the Minister of Magic. I thought that was very nice, so thank you to them. That was always fun with the young kids there, so amazing. So thank you to Sharon and Jason. I want to thank the New Milford Paradise Classic Cruisers. They did a wonderful car show back in July called the Thanksgiving in July, and they were able to collect $6,000 for the New Milford Food Bank. So we can't thank them enough for that, and for all of the sponsors for the car show as well. That'll be much needed funds for the New Milford Food Bank, so we can't thank them enough for that. Wanted to thank the Lions Club, President Matt Roach and all the Lions, as they did their senior picnic that they do each and every year at Harrybrook Park. And it was great to see all the seniors there, and thank you to the Lions. And Mike, thank you. He was there as well for all they do for the community. Couple of quick sidebars as well. Updates on the New Milford paint and scrape project that we're doing at the two gyms. The contractor was continuing with the painting. I believe it's almost done, right, Superintendent Parlato? It was really cool. They painted the beams New Milford green, so that was pretty cool. And we'll have more updates once that is completed. And I believe, Dr. Parlato, you guys are then going to do the floor. So that'll be an outstandingly beautiful, both gyms. So that'll be great. As far as we were talking a little bit about the Fair Rent Commission and where we are, I know Hillary was talking about the updates for that. I hope to bring more content for you at the next meeting. I was actually at one of the, or not at, but on one of the webinars. Then I was actually talking to some other individuals at CCM, and we're continuing to build out the backbone for the Fair Rent Commission. And what I mean by that is we need, first of all, we need an attorney. So
Right.
we're working on bringing the attorney. We're working on bringing a secretary that's going to be involved. We're working right now on the website that is needed, that they do like in New Haven and the other towns. In speaking with the representative from New Haven, most of their things are done virtually. They're not done like during regular meetings. They do Zoom meetings. And I'd asked them, why would it be a Zoom meeting, not in person? And their reply back was that it's really more convenient for the tenant, because some of them can't take a day off. let alone they may be able to take an hour off. And also, some landlords are out of state. What they do is they begin with a mediation meeting first, which is either the full board or a representative of the board, the attorney that will be representative of the commission. The people could have their own attorney, and then they see if they can actually mediate a resolution prior to the actual meeting. So that being said, you're going to be looking at 2 meetings minimum per person, per docket. I'm going to be coming back to the council at the next meeting with a recommendation of how much money we should appropriate, and I'm working with the finance director of where we're going to take out these funds, because they were unbudgeted funds. And then I'll at that time too, I will have names to bring forward as well. Hillary.
I was just gonna ask or say respectfully, I think some of the infrastructure that you're building, the committee, you know, because we don't know what we don't know, like these members who are gonna come with their expertise might help in the setup phase too,
Well,
you know
this
what I
is
mean?
not just you, this is the other towns as well.
Yeah, we're
I'm just
kinda-
saying, like, you know what I mean, the committee might actually be integral in doing this setup stuff,
Oh,
so I think that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think before we would go live, the committee would look at it and say, this looks like a good thing. I'm just trying to build it out, so when the committee goes, we're not waiting 2-3 additional months as we try and build out a backbone. And then also internally figuring out which personnel we're gonna use to help with setting up agendas and all that stuff as well.
Clear.
So hopefully we'll have all that taken care of. As far as the opioid settlement committee, I'll have the names forward at the next meeting. We are going to be getting some additional funding. I should have the number of that. There was just another one that supposedly settled. Hopefully by September I'll have that, and we'll have another amount as well. And I'll have those names for you guys to review. If anybody has an additional names for the opioid task force, please push them forward.
To
And
you,
that
right,
way we can
Mayor?
have that set.
They should
Yes.
contact you?
Yes. And that's what I have for the mayor's comments.
Okay. There's a little clerical correction for those of you here in the council. Apparently, the numbering system is changed. We had number 5, which was consent, the mayor was number 6, and then we have another 6. So would you just realize that we're gonna go in sequential order, and even though they're not read correctly. So I'll be now on number 7, and I'd like to move to approve for the zoning commission the following appointment, which would be Robert D. Michelle as an alternate, term to be July 24th, 2023 through January 31st, 2024. And there is a correction on his address. He is not on Long Mountain Road. Mr. D. Michelle lives at 97 Great Brook Road.
And he's currently serving as an alternate.
Yes, he
I'll
is.
second that.
Okay.
Any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 8, which is tasked as B City, I'd like to move to approve the B City 2. This is a temporary committee, and appoint, the term for all on this committee is August 14th, 2023, February 13th, 2024. The following people: Nicholas Puder, Timothy Clark, Ann Stone, Susan Metcalf, Suzanne Patricia Von Holt, Katie Francis, Mike Boucher, Patty L. Catalano Crispo.
Second.
Any discussion on the B committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any, did you have a comment? Oh, any
No, my
abstentions?
comment was just, I can't help but feel like this was maybe gonna be a young people getting involved here. And I feel that, I just feel sad that I've never been asked for somebody to put forward, and this was sort of a perfect, you know, feel good committee where maybe we could bridge that gap.
If you have other
But it
names?
has
Right.
yet to happen that the Democrats are asked. So anyway, I'm just saying that there are a
Can
lot of
be
familiar
asked.
names on this list, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to pull some young people, some new people into our town government. That's my only.
But you don't have to be asked, Hillary. I mean, none of us have to be asked. You can call him anytime and suggest the
I
person.
have done that, but
If
it's
you-
never
if you
been,
have some
I've
name-
never gotten an answer on any of my emails, so
If you have a name of someone who'd like to serve on the B City,
send it forward.
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. We have many of the youngsters on the pollinator pathways, but they're a little too young for this. Okay, so you have the motion, and it was approved.
Yep. Next cultural.
Did I vote on?
And,
Oh, all those in favor?
You voted for
We
it.
did.
no, I just want to make sure. So
Yeah.
Hillary, you're,
You voted before she said all that, but it's, yeah, I got it.
but,
Yeah.
and you abstained.
I abstained.
Okay. So now we're going to move to item 7A, or 7B, I guess. I'd like to move the following temporary committee, Cultural District Committee, term of August 14th, 2023 to February 13th, 2024, consisting of the following members: Betty Lou Mandler, Deborah Rose, Valerie Lorimer, Jason Roberts, Lipa Furman, Ellen Newman, Amy Birkin, Olga Rella, Susan Lynn Williams-Kellogg, and Denise Del Mastro.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Item number 8, Kent Fletcher is going to give us an update on the Housatonic Herbicide Working Group.
Kent,
There he is.
run up.
Good evening, everybody. Kent Fletcher, 17 Elizabeth Lane. Bruce Bennett, a tree warden in Kent, and we're with the Housatonic Herbicide Working Group, and what we're trying to do is monitor what the railroad is spraying and get some legislation put in place, similar to what Massachusetts has. They're very much more robust than what we have in Connecticut. And so I hope everybody has the pamphlet that I passed out. Okay, so basically, we'll just go down through the goals. Is we want to obtain a list of herbicides that the railroad uses in New Milford, notification prior to their spraying, regulations equivalent or more robust than those in Massachusetts, testing areas within 24 hours after commencement of the application, identify and map sensitive areas to include wetlands, highly populated areas, and wells, and create some no-spray zones. And then once, what I'd like to do is get folks to GPS and send the coordinates of their wells, the folks that are close to the railroad, and we can map those out and let them know, those folks know where those are. And then, after that's all done, place it in the New Milford GIS system. So that's available for residents to go online and check that out. So Bruce was involved longer than myself. They asked for a New Milford rep, and I was happy to jump on board. And Bruce had done a lot of work prior to that. So this is just a short synopsis of what's gone into what we've been doing. And I think it was a couple months ago, I emailed you guys a packet, and it had maps and things like that in it and so forth. So, but we want to definitely make it known that we're not anti-railroad. We appreciate the railroad and see it as a good resource, for moving goods and things like that. But we believe the council must help our mission by contacting the state reps and the railroad. We haven't got very far, and Bruce will probably speak in a little bit about the progress they've had after getting some folks in town involved. So we've been having a tough time. The railroad's just kind of pushing us aside, if you will. Let's see. So we have received letters of support from Mayor Bass, thank you very much, in the Conservation Commission. And then, like I said, residents can submit the locations within 100 feet of the right-of-way, and there's an app right on your iPhone. You can go on Maps, push down, it'll place a pin, give you a coordinate pair, email that to that address, and I'll get it in the mapping. And then we found so far, the list of herbicides we know are Milestone, Flumoxazin, probably saying that wrong, Oust XP, and Glyphosate, which is Roundup. So we do know that so far. But basically, the goal is to, like I say, set up the no-spray zones and just monitor what they're doing, have them notify us. And I did speak with a gentleman in Gaylordsville who's going to give me the location of his well, so that's a start. And then we'll go from there. And then the second page It's just basically a statement of what we would like you folks to do. Contact those, and either by phone, in writing, email, would be perfect. Would be great ammunition for us. Katie?
I
So,
just have a quick question, Ken.
Sure.
Under the goal, the notification prior to the use of herbicide along, so they are not compelled to give notice at all?
They are, but 21 days before they spray. And so we have no way of knowing when they spray, where they're spraying, or in any way to be able to monitor their spraying.
So any time in that
Correct.
21
quite a
days?
I've talked to the DEEP about coming down and testing after they've sprayed, which they're more than willing to do, but we don't know when they spray and they won't tell us.
And who do they notify? People
They
who live
notify
along?
the selectmen and mayor of each town
Ah,
that's involved. So that's Canaan, Falls Village, Cornwall, Kent, and New Milford.
right.
So everybody is notified of what they're using. So if I can just tell you who I am, my name is Bruce Bennett. I have a license for grounds pesticide application supervisory, which allows me to be able to spray anything from 15 feet down, and I've had that license for 32 years. I also have an arborist license, which has a pesticide section of that, and that allows me to spray anything from 15 feet up. I was the former owner of Kent Greenhouse, and we utilized this as sparingly as we possibly could. I might also add that I'm an organic gardener and do not use herbicides on my own property. But I do know what these chemicals are, and I know how difficult it is to be able to monitor the people that are actually applying the chemicals on the various areas, and that's our concern, that best practices aren't followed. One of the things in Connecticut is they have no control over utilizing these herbicides in wetland areas, in watercourses and streams. So when the Housatonic River Railroad starts spraying, they just spray right down over culverts. The river in 3 places is closer than 8 feet. In one place, it's closer than 6 feet to the river or the lake. So these chemicals are definitely drifting into these lakes. They have this cocktail. We never used a cocktail. The reason they're using the cocktail is that they have chemicals that do various things. So they have post-emergence herbicides, pre-emergence herbicides that they're using. We did convince them to stop using an herbicide called
Method
240. Method 240 was a chemical that stayed on the railroad tracks but leached down through the ground for over a 2-year period and was apt to go into the aquifers.
Oh, my God.
It's a chemical that should be banned in Connecticut. I don't even know why they're still using it. So they have agreed to be able to stop that. The issue that we have is that we've gotten all the towns to be able to support us. Mayor Pete was one of them. But they won't talk to us as a group, the Housatonic Herbicide Working Group. We're just not making any headway. So what we need you to be able to shake them up by sending them letters and sending letters to the our legislators, and from there we'll be able to take it and push it through and try to get them to adopt the Massachusetts regulations. You know, we're not anti-railroad. We really wish they had talked to us. These are very reasonable requests we have, but it's just not happening. That's why we're turning to you. Thank you.
And I know Mr. Harding had mentioned in one of the meetings, somebody was speaking with him that he wasn't aware. Nobody had brought this issue to his attention. So that's what we're hoping to do, is bring this forward.
Question for both the gentlemen. How far of a spread is this spray going as they go down the tracks?
That's a really good question. So the right-of-way is 20 feet to the right and left of the center lines of the railroad track.
Wow.
That's the right-of-way.
So 10 feet on each side?
No, 20 feet
20
on each side.
from the
20
center
feet on
line.
each side.
Ah.
That's where they can do. But the problem is when you're spraying, you get drift.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they do, they allow them to be able to spray horizontally to be able to knock back the branches of trees.
No.
And so there's no way that spray doesn't drift beyond that point.
You get a windy day, that's all.
Well, what happens to the neighborhood that has kids in it that they're coming through and spraying a 40-foot
Right.
spread
Exactly.
and the drift going to the children
Exactly.
or the elderly or anybody else?
Right.
Any human, dog, cat,
Right.
cow, you name it.
Every one of these chemicals have a warning. All of them have a warning about aquatic animals. So
We gotta do
I
something
understand you need to use herbicides. I'm not anti-herbicide. Obviously, I have license to be able to use them, but they need to be used sparingly, they need to be used properly, and they need to be, and I don't see any reason for this huge cocktail of chemicals that they have.
And they need to be warned to the public.
They need to warn the public.
That is
They need to warn the
outrageous.
public. And so one of the things that started all this, which will be, I think, of interest to you, is that in Falls Village in Cornwall, they killed hundreds of trees, mostly white pines, because the chemical they had leached into the root systems of the trees, they absorb it. In fact, one of the chemicals specifically was made to do that, and it killed the trees. So we're having a battle in Cornwall about who's going to remove these trees now that are falling on our roads.
That's unbelievable.
So when people use any kind of chemicals to manage things, usually they have to post something to say that it was done.
They do not.
They do not.
Neither does
After the fact, but they
neither
still
does
don't
the
do that.
state. Neither does the state post. They are not required to post.
Okay, and do you have a counterpart south of us? Because we're the most southern, northwest community. What about Brookfield?
We
Is there
didn't-
anybody who exists south of us that's been successful, or?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
And we did not, we had to make a decision about who we could get involved. And we know that we're all very close to the river.
Right.
As it goes south, it veers away from the river. So, we didn't go any farther, so
Got it.
we can't
Just
answer that.
wondering if there are more people out there who might join them.
Well, I think everybody's concerned, especially those people who live along the railroad, about, when they're spraying and how
Absolutely.
they're spraying
I
and
mean-
what the effect is going to be. We know what's happening with Roundup.
There are homes with the railroad tracks this far away.
Totally.
And this gentleman in Gainesville, he was right there, so he was very interested. So the more we can get the word out, the better.
And your support.
What was the date of the last correspondence that you had with Housatonic River?
We tried to get in touch with them all winter long, all the way up before the spraying period, which was in June.
And what do you think was the last time that you talked to them?
No, they won't talk to us.
Or the last time you sent a correspondence to them?
Probably, I don't know exactly, but I would say January was the last time. They are speaking with our first selectman. Was it January? They are speaking with our first selectman, Gordon Ridgway. He's the only one that they will talk to, because Gordon was the one that brought the death of the trees to their attention.
And that's what it
Almost
took.
3 years ago, 4 years,
Took the
4
dead
years ago.
trees to get them to pay attention.
Have we seen
Right.
dead trees in New Milford?
Say again?
Have we seen this in New Milford as well, with the dead trees?
Oh, yeah. If you go down the railroad track and just walk down the railroad tracks, you'll see the dead trees and you'll see the trees laying. I was in the park up near Boardman's Bridge, Sega Park, thank you.
Sega Meadow.
And you can see all the trees along that track laying alongside the track. They need to be able to keep the tracks clean. I understand that. It just needs to be done with a little bit more control than they have, like they have none. They have no
Bruce,
control.
You seem to know, I'm just curious, so you have a license, I know you said 15 up, 15 down. Do they, obviously they probably have somebody who also has that, but is that a requirement that someone with that licensure be there when they come down the track and spray?
Good question. So a supervisory license, which I have, means that I determine the chemical that's going to be used, the area that's going to be sprayed, and the time that it's going to be sprayed. So in other words, on a windy day, I won't do it. The problem with the railroad, and you can only imagine it's a business, is that they say, okay, we're going to spray on the 22nd of June at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, it could be raining.
Yeah.
It could be windy. But when you have a whole crew there and all the equipment and the trucks and the spray equipment, they're going to spray.
Right, right. And is that person responsible as you would be if you were to do that?
Absolutely 100% responsible. So if we can get the DEEP to come down after they spray and determine that there is chemical in the wetlands, in Kent, the
Yes, I
whole
was
southern
just
part is all
thinking of that,
wetlands.
right.
Then we can do something about it. But like all government people, they're so overwhelmed that it's hard to get them to respond.
Do they spray one time a year?
They spray one time a year, thus the cocktail, so that they have longevity on some of the chemicals and they can keep it, going, keep the
It
effect
would seem
going.
unreasonable to try to get a certain day to tell everybody they're doing it just once a year.
I agree.
Doesn't seem unreasonable.
And I believe that can be done, that you can do it once a year, so.
Like you just mentioned, they have the crew intact, and they have to do it on that day, so it doesn't vary, so they can give you that pinpoint if they have it. What you mentioned is they have it down as a date, so
Right.
so they know, so they should be able to tell us.
They should be able to tell us, yes, yeah.
It should be a public health issue here. This is really serious.
In fact, they should be concerned about it themselves.
No, I was gonna say, it seems like you have a model that's working in Massachusetts. So what is that?
Okay, it is a fantastic model, because of what it does is it warns them, they have to mark out the wetland areas, or actually they call it all sensitive areas, because there's not only wetlands, but there are sensitive areas where there are, bog turtles and things that are in danger. So all of those areas have to be marked out. They have to not spray in those areas, or just spray down onto the track, so they can't spray the sides, which they can here. So they're restricted to be able to do that. And they have restrictions on how far away from the rivers and streams and brooks. They have to stop spraying, and then they have to start spraying again. So that, and they control the chemicals, they control the time that it happens. The conservation commissions in each one of the towns in Massachusetts has to be notified of when they're going to do it. So it's totally heavily controlled. It's a great policy.
So we'll write some letters.
Pardon?
We'll write some letters.
Thank you.
You have my support here.
Yeah, thank you for
100%.
coming
I
so
don't know about the
much.
rest of the room, but
Not in our town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Thank you,
much.
Ken.
update us. We'll do, please. Please. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is a financial update from Greg Ospow.
So Greg was left ill today, so he did want to let me know a couple things. One, this is the beginning of our new year, so your financials reflect really minimal substance right now, because we're in the beginning phase of the year. We are going through a munis upgrade, both on the town side and the Board of Education side. That's going to be implemented on the 25th, so we're working on that. Greg will then close out of books for last year, will be on the, I believe on the 25th as well, and then at the next council meeting is when we can talk more about the final closeout for the year 23. Yeah, yep.
Good.
And that's what I have for an update for finance for right now.
I hope Greg feels better.
Next is Sullivan Farm Committee.
Yes.
And sad to say, we were having Mr. Mencken come in, but he's feeling under the weather. So that's going to go on the next council
Okay.
agenda.
So we're going to table this until September.
First meeting in September, which I think is the 10th, I think it is. I don't know that.
Whatever.
That doesn't
Yeah.
affect any of our plans.
No. I had asked them that, and they said no. They could do it in September.
Okay. Mayor, item 11 is down to you.
Thank you. First, we're going to take an update on the E Street School Building. So I'd like to update the council. I did send the council an email on kind of what's transpired. The Board of Education released the building to the town on the 30th of June. I had asked Jack to commence assessments. This is the first one, which is a limited indoor air quality report, which I sent to the council. We started that on July 3rd. They also did it on the 6th and the 14th. You guys all have the report. The report showed different things that are going on within the school. The major component in this one here at this particular time was the buildup of the mold. And the mold buildup happened, and Jack Healy's here tonight. He could talk a little bit about it if we'd like him to. Was when we ran that boiler from October through the winter, all the way through the spring. That additional moisture, for those that don't know, mold thrives on moisture. So that additional moisture really caused the mold to really expand in numerous areas within East Street School. The moisture was so much that the wood floor that Carmela's has on part of their process had actually warped in certain areas that you do see in this report. I then spoke to being notified that we do have mold within that building. I did disclose to you, to the public, and to the Board of Education as well. As you have to do is disclose. I then talked to our town attorney, Randy Della. I talked to Jack Healy, and I also talked to our health director, Amy. And to side on the air of caution, we decided that we were going to close down East Street School to limit any kind of liability that the town may have itself. In so doing, that presents a dilemma, which is Camellus Cupboard. And Camellus, for those that don't know, distributes food to hundreds of our residents here in New Milford. I'd spoken to Angie Chastain, and I told Angie we would be closing it down, and the reasons being, today I met with Angie, I met with Jack Healy, met with Bill Murphy, the building inspector, to see if we can move them over to Pettibone as we look at a permanent solution. So we're working on those opportunities there. I'll have more of an update as we keep looking at that. One is electrical usage, how we can make that work, because she has a big, huge freezer within the space, and how we can make all that work for Angie. I did let her know our concern is we want to make sure taking care of those in need, as her staff has always done in tandem with our food bank as well. Another concern we have too is that is a polling district. So how do we get the polling district out, and where are we going to go? So in speaking with Randy, what I did do and alerted the council was we did an emergency order, which is going to allow for more of an efficient way for Camellus Cupboard, and also to move the polling district. My recommendation to the voter registrars is the senior center, with a new area, has plenty of parking, has a good new space. So we're going to be looking at that opportunity, and I will let the council know as we are working on that. Next steps is part of Fosa O'Neill's inspections as well is with asbestos. And what was the other one, Jack? Asbestos, what was the other one? Lead. And lead. So that's part of what we were going to be looking at when I originally put this on the agenda, was to give you a timeline of when we were going to start our tours, which would have been starting with council, Board of Finance, and then going into letting the public come in and view the space, and then doing public hearings. We've kind of pushed that back a little bit, as we were going to be really doing these assessments first, then bringing that to the council to review, and then after that come up with next steps on the space as well. So before I move on, does anybody have any questions so far as we're moving on? Alex?
Yeah, a few about the company that did it's a limited assessment. That the conversations with them started back in May. Who had those conversations with them? You or Jack?
I did.
You did, okay.
Yep, and then Jack did. I asked Jack.
Okay, so they make reference to they obtained and relied upon information from multiple sources. They didn't verify for accuracy or completeness. I guess I'm a little concerned about what was initially said to them, what you were looking for. They also referenced a time concern and limited funds. So I'm concerned about, was everything done that needed to be done, and how was it set up with them? Mm-hmm. Was it, who'd they talk to? Because
Sure.
it sounded like they didn't talk to enough people, and
Jack?
Alex, it's just for, you're referring to the Fuss and O'Neill
Correct,
report?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't print all 60 pages, but I read them. But I just printed 2 that kind of made me think, wait a minute, do we have what we need?
Jack?
So I think I heard everything. There was no limitations put on Fuss and O'Neill. I talked to them. This is a standard process that we use for mold and for hazardous materials studies. We request them to provide us with an estimate of what the cost would be. We write a purchase order and we get them to come in. I asked them for what their thoughts are as far as what they do for a study like this. They are certified industrial hygienists. They know, they do this. In fact, they do the work for the Board of Ed. They do the work for the town. This is very custom for them to do. They provide us with services. We probably keep them on, between us and the Board of Ed, 10, 15, 20 projects a year.
So I'm not questioning their
Okay.
qualifications. What I'm questioning is, what were they told up front, and when they gave the proposal on May 15th for what they were going to be providing, who did they talk to? How did they know to come to some of their conclusions? Because they're referencing that they couldn't verify things, or they didn't, and that had a lot to do with time constraints and with the budget. So it's right here. It says it in Appendix A. So my question is, what were they told and by whom? Who did they get to talk to? How do they know things that they know?
Primarily, as far as the timing and the budget, it's me or Dave Martin. They were given access to the school. One of the things, we were asked to do it as quickly as we could to make sure that we took our responsibility. As far as the mold goes, they were given full access to the building. They would call, Joey Bain would open the building. There was no limitations on. They could spend all day there if they wanted to. They could spend multiple days there. I asked them to do a proper study. I've done this for probably 30 years also, and there were no limitations put on them. I asked them for a proper study. They'd also, in the past, they do a lot of this work for the school. They've done, many of them have been at that building previously, so I know there was no limitations on time for them to do anything. And there was no limitation as far as budget. The mayor asked me to get a price, we got a price. There's actually two purchase requisitions written, one for the mold and the second one for the hazardous materials.
Is it appropriate for us to know how much it costs?
Sure, it's public record. How much did it cost, Jack?
I'm sorry,
Remember?
what?
How much did it
How
cost?
much did it cost?
I think, I don't have that answer. I think that the mold was like $3,500 or $4,000. I think the hazmat study was like $8,000. And that's off the top of my head. If you want, I can go back and look at my requisitions.
Katie McKillop?
Jack, I just, as Alex said, who did they talk to or who told them what to do? They were hired, as I understood it, to do air quality testing in the building.
Yeah.
Meaning anything they found.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I told them
Okay,
to go
all
into
right.
the building and do
So it wasn't, you didn't mention asbestos.
There's two different studies.
Yeah, that's right, 'cause that's
The first one
not
is the
air,
mold,
okay,
the second
gotcha.
one is the hazardous materials study.
That's right.
Which they were actually in there, I think, today and again tomorrow.
Yes, there was somebody there today.
Yeah, they're finishing up their studies to make sure. We wanted something on the mold quickly. We asked them to
Right.
continue. I spoke with Miguel at Fuss and O'Neill, the person we normally work with. He sets up the protocol. He's scheduled. Now, one of the things is they have a very busy schedule. During the summer, we're doing this. Schools are doing this. They've got a very busy schedule. We had to fit it into their schedule.
Hillary?
I'm interested to hear from someone from the Board of Education if they're willing to come up and talk about
Absolutely.
the test as far as from their perspective, or if no one wants to, then
Sure,
I
if you have
understand.
questions, absolutely. So, where would you like me to start?
Well, I just wanted to know sort of the history of the back and forth and how, this was sort of known how bad the state of affairs in this building were. So I guess just from your perspective, the history of this situation.
We have, I'll answer that in two different directions. Number one, quote, we've known the history of the building is a very simple but complex question, because I think the town has discussed the struggles with this building over many, many, many years. These reports and some of where we're at are a little bit more defined. Clearly, when you have indoor air quality testing, when we do it at our schools, it's done every year, sometimes things of that nature. And as a matter of fact, we submitted to the mayor today the last 2 years of the air quality testing reports. We tried to get those as quickly as we could. So that's kind of a different issue. So in answer to your question, when this came out, obviously, for me, I took a look at the last follow-up of this email, and the mayor has asked to try and get all this information together as quickly as we could, and that's what we've been doing. We've gathered reports. I've asked Dr. Parlato to go back and get all of the maintenance records so we can coordinate what we were doing every day from January on, so we can have a transparent conversation of what we're doing. That's the right thing to do. And we're trying to get that as quickly as we can, if that helps.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to try and answer. I certainly do not have the expertise behind me, and I don't pretend to. I can only give you the procedures of the board.
Thank you.
Sure. And I'm happy, go ahead. If you want to discuss that we had a conversation today, I'm happy to put it, whatever you all want to do.
Tom?
Just some comments. When, to your point about who spoke to them, we hire a lot of mold companies for inspections. They go out, they do their reports. Nobody has influence over any of these reporting companies. You could sit there and tell them the greatest story in the world on why you don't have mold. If they find mold, they're going to report it, right? On the hazardous side, the asbestos and the lead is a legacy of the way we built buildings a long time ago.
100%.
So this is not anybody, to point the finger at anybody. Listen, we knew that boiler had to be replaced for the last 15 years, right? But that building really did not have the economics to do it. So we've been talking about this. It as the mayor said, it's fed by moisture. There's a lot of buildings in town that have moisture in it, a lot of homes in town that have moisture in it. Once you solve the moisture issue, you kill the mold. That's the feed, is water, right? So now that we're moving down that pathway, and now that the town has taken possession of the building, obviously we're going to do our due diligence to restore this building to its historic glory. Nobody wants this thing to go anywhere but, up. There's too much historical, reference in this building for the town of New Milford to ever have anything bad go on with this. So I think as time goes on, we're going to figure out a way to fix the building, use it to its highest and best use for the town. But I wouldn't point fingers at anybody, saying who asked, who spoke to who, what was the questioning, who gave them the information. I know a lot of these companies, they interview everybody, and then they walk in, they do their report, they take their tests, and the test is the test.
Mr. Mayor, please. I need to speak to exactly what you just said. I said to the mayor, did we get everything we need? Because it sounded like there were limitations to what we asked for. That's what I said.
Okay.
There was no pointing of fingers, please.
Okay. No,
okay?
I wasn't.
Well, please.
I wasn't pointing directly at you. I was just saying
I know,
you
it
made
was
a
my
comment.
question, but you assumed I was pointing fingers. I'm not pointing fingers. I asked, did we get everything we needed? Because there's reference to limited conversations.
I agree, but when you followed up with the fact of who spoke to and who gave direction, that's what created some pause for me.
Because, same thing, because if they had limited access to people who could provide information, we may not have everything we need. You went down the rabbit hole, Tom, not me.
I'm not going down any rabbit hole. I'm telling you, you can talk to, let me finish. You can talk to as many people as you want as an asbestos or mold inspector. They can tell you the greatest story in the world. They're not going to take the information that you provide as gospel. They're going to go in, they're going to do their swipes, they're going to find the mold, they're going to write a report.
that that's where the mold came from. You're intimating that somebody had influence over this, or that they may have had a limited access for some particular reason, and I took exception to that.
If you read what they wrote,
I
it
wrote-
raises the question.
I wrote what they wrote, but I did not ask the question, who gave them direction and where did they get information, like that information was going to be the basis of their report. The basis of the report is the standard mold inspection studies. You go out, you do your wipes, you do your testing, it is what it is. You can talk to, like I said, you can talk to everybody in town. It's not going to change the fact that if the test goes positive for mold, it's got mold in it, no matter who you're speaking to.
The mold has been there for a very, very long time.
I think there's
Well,
no
mold
surprise.
comes and goes with
There's-
moisture.
there's no
When the
surprise.
building dries out, the moisture, the mold dies. When the moisture gets reintroduced, the mold starts to grow again.
Right. Usually in summer, it's the worst. So I think I have a real problem with the declaration of an emergency, because we have known the building is in this, and I feel that that's just a dangerous precedent to always have, call for an emergency. And this legislative body would act very quickly to get whatever we need to get done to have an election, find that place. So I wonder if you could just explain that reasoning for that, because it is, it's quite a big deal
So we
to
did know
have
there's
that.
mold spores in there.
Right.
What had happened was, when the boiler was let to go full steam for months on end, which was a major concern of mine, that created an atmosphere of tremendous growth in mold in that whole building. Jack, am I correct on that?
The steam exacerbated the problem. It made increased amount of moisture in the building. There was mold there.
Yeah. And there's been,
So now
there's no
we
surprise there. Right.
So now, because of that boiler going like it did for as many months as it did, now you had a tremendous amount of mold. You had Carmela's cupboard that was in there. We want to make sure that we lessen any kind of vulnerability that the town could have. On the town side, knowing that we had this additional growth of a mold, don't have the additional inspections when it comes to both asbestos and both to other things. When you have a very, very wet area, especially when you take a look at the findings you got, especially in the boiler room area, you see the piping there, it's wrapped, it's wet. I don't know if that's asbestos. I don't know if it's any of that stuff. So in the era of caution, in speaking with our attorney, speaking with our DPW director, and with our health department, I made the decision that we should do the right thing to close down the building.
There's no doubt to close the building.
Right.
You don't have to declare an emergency in sort of an executive order whereby you don't, I think that to me seems, that we could do anything that you needed to get done in this body. I don't think, I don't know, Randy, maybe you can, I don't know.
You had to move.
No, you can't move this body.
You need to suspend zoning, you need to get somebody over at JPCC, and you had exposed, open heads of cabbage and heads of lettuce in a situation in which the health director said, wear masks.
Yeah.
That's an emergency.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Lynn. The only other thing is, in 2018, there was $20,000 that was for a reuse study. Did that find any mold or any?
what study?
$20,000 was from a grant you guys received for
What kind of study?
a reuse study from the Historic Preservation Office
okay.
for that building. Was that used there to do any kind of study?
I don't know, Hillary, I have to look, I don't know that
We
off
got the
top of my head.
$20,000. Okay, so that's the question.
I'm happy to answer any
Okay.
questions. That's why we came this evening. We
Right.
planned on coming whenever I explained
Is
to the mayor that whenever anything is on a town council agenda that's school-related, if we are not committed somewhere else, we try and be here.
So Hillary, the 2018 study, is that the town study?
It was a grant that New Milford received from the Historic Preservation Office for $20,000 to do a reuse study.
For East Street School?
Yes.
Then that would be under the Board of Education, because Board
No,
of
it was
Education.
No, it went to,
It went to the
did go to
town.
the town there.
The grant,
It was a grant, I
Right.
believe it had to do, that's when they were looking at all the paintings and all the windows, and how, was that around the time someone was interested in purchasing the building?
I think Katie's correct on that. It had to do with, let's take a look, the Historic Society came in, and there was a grant that came in pertaining to the windows and the historic preservation, and how that could be used towards benefiting the overall, what are we doing about East Street question, the big question.
Because there were some people interested in.
I believe you're right.
whatever. Yeah, that's about the time frame that it was.
And what year did Board of Ed move in there?
The Board of Ed, now, watch it. It was before my time. The Board of Ed moved from the old post office into East Street in, I believe, 1982. Okay? The building is 100 years old. We all know that, as you said perfectly, with buildings of this age, there were different standards back then. And so when you use a building and you are trying to work through issues to maintain a building, you have to be very careful of the Pandora's box that you open. And that's through all the reports with recommendations over the years. Mitigate this, do that, but be cognizant. So that's when technically the offices started to be used. The entire conversation of East Street, has been a while, but there's no doubt, I'd ask the mayor this point blank, when you had closed the school, I knew firsthand exactly that it was to preserve the safety and welfare of all those people in the building. That would be, I'm not an attorney, that would be the appropriate advice. Now, I understood that. However, I do think that, as I said, we're going to continue to give whatever reports we can, because technically, this is still all of the town's buildings, and we should supply what we've done maintenance-wise. We're happy to do that. It takes a little bit of time, day by day, what we're doing. What were we doing in this building even from January to June? And where do we go from here? There is no problem with that.
That's what we want to do.
Whatever. We've dug up the reports. I've gone back and looked through emails to 2018 personally, all day. Whatever questions you have.
I think there was some before that too, that preceded the whole grant thing, but again, that's stretching my memory.
If you go back and take a look at your actual budget video from March 2nd, 2023, the first 42 minutes of that joint hearing is East Street School.
Oh, we've spent probably more of our
Katie,
lives than
a
we ever want to
bazillion.
really know talking
just,
about this.
But I was astounded. I looked at that and I go, okay, maybe
Really?
10, maybe 12 minutes. I go, 42
Wendy,
minutes?
if we add up Pettibone, East Street, and let's just stop there because
Full career.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Jen.
But, yes, so we understand, and I appreciate the opportunity for, this discussion. And I personally, I've said this a million times before, as Kay would say, let's just keep moving this discussion along.
Right.
It's time. It's time. And whatever costs come about and whatever we decide and we disclose together, we own it. Let the facts come out, I have no problem with that.
So the first step was what the mayor did was to get Kamel out of there, and that did require that order, because you couldn't move, as attorney just told you, couldn't have just moved her out into the street, that wouldn't have worked. So
So will we have further conversation about this building? I mean, I have, why didn't we sell it when the Dakota, when that offer was on the table? There are multitudes of questions, but why didn't you sell it when we had the
I don't think it
$1.6
was up to
million?
you, was it?
That's not up to me.
Well,
We
he's
have a
the
council
mayor,
here.
Katie.
But we have 9
Obviously,
people that sit here.
We
We're
can
the-
ask the boss, right?
No,
We
let me-
can.
let
Yes,
me
we
just
can.
say
So I would
this.
like to hear your
So,
reasoning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll give you my opinion.
Let's not sidetrack it. I asked a very reasonable question. The building
So-
was either gonna cost $6 million to repair, and there was an offer on the table. I'm curious why we went one direction.
Okay. And what year was the
Oh,
offer?
we've had many.
The offer was in 2018.
Okay. So, one of the things is I ran, when I first became mayor, is this isn't a one person's decision. This is not two people's decision. This isn't the 9 people that are here. This is the community's property. This is the community's treasure. So we're gonna do it right. So what we are going to do, as I had talked about prior, is we are going to get estimates of the cost of what it would be to fix it, what the cost would be to keep it, what the ongoing things are. We're then going to have public hearings where we're going to have the people come in and tell us what they think of that building. Same with Pettibone. We are going to have people, we're going to have robust conversations on these buildings because they're the people's buildings.
Right, I think
And the
that was
pe-
what was said.
And the people
before
are
this.
going to decide.
Yeah, not us.
I think the people should decide, but I think that that's been said for multitudes of years, so I think.
And I understand
Right.
multitudes of years.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Kenny. I also know that we had a microburst that I believe was that year. Am I correct? Was it that year? And then right after that, unfortunately, I'm like, okay, we're gonna be moving out of that. And then we had the tropical storm. And then, okay, we're gonna get out of that. Then unfortunately, we had COVID. And then we're sitting here talking to the Board of Ed and talking to the town, how are we gonna move these things forward? And then we had the unfortunate fire incident. So good news is we've come out of all those things, I think stronger than we have prior. And now's a good chance to take a look at these ongoing issues and work together to make them better for the town, as you're going to see on the next agenda item when we talk about the administrative offices as well.
So to potentially ask the taxpayers to pay the 5 to 6 million to refurbish the building, that's kind of
Well,
what.
it's
We
not
could-
to ask them, it's for them to decide, Hillary.
Whatever that cost could be, then that would be another conversation. Are there grants that we could get?
Right.
Is there something that the town thinks that they should keep that building for? Is there some things that we can do? Is there grant funds we could get? Or is the right thing to do is to sell that to a third-party person? And I was accused of that, Hillary, many times, that I already had a guy already on the hook for it. And as soon, remember that, Randy? And as soon as it's available, the sale sign's up there already. That's false.
It's
My
not
thing is,
before
it should be
2017.
a robust conversation with all of us and then to the people. And let the people
If I'm
decide.
wrong, there were 2 POCDs for the last 2 years, I was on both of them.
Yep.
The overriding commitment from the community was to save that building somehow, some way. So the fact that anybody would sell it under the nose of the people,
Well,
that is not the way we
no.
operate here in town.
Look, that just happened to the building on Church Street, across the street here, so I agree with you. I wanted to hear the reasoning behind why you didn't say yes to that deal. The deal was on the table, you guys considered it. You seriously
It's gonna
considered
take
it.
a townwide
So I
vote for
wanted
that
to
to
hear,
happen.
It
and I have heard
started
his
before then,
answer,
Hillary.
so that is great.
Hillary.
Yeah.
Can I just say,
Okay.
Yeah.
the whole
grants,
thing
Terry.
about the guy who wanted to buy the building started before 2017. That conversation went on for a long time, and no one person decides. That's what we're here for. Actually, what
course.
we
The
decide,
debate. Yes, I've heard
we overrule him. I mean, I think our
I
town attorney
understand.
explained
I
that.
understand.
So I just think that it's not up to one person, and the whole idea of having the town decide is really the important thing. Bring it up to the point that it's
town should
usable
decide.
to some degree, that you can walk in there and not have to hold your breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing to do, why we got Camilla out. But I mean, if you look at it, it is for the town to decide. But now, unfortunately, we're a little bit on hold here because we can't have them walking in there and looking at it. You know, we talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of people, a lot of adults in this town who haven't been in that building since they were there in the 2nd grade. And I think
Yes.
it's a little different now than it was. So I think it's only right that we let everybody come and see it, including
Yeah,
developers.
so long as the full picture is presented about what you're planning, what it's gonna cost, all of those things. We're all on the same page with that.
Yep. But look back, I'm going to try to do it too, but look back before then, because there were some other people interested also. I mean, there was a whole conversation for a couple
Oh,
of
yeah,
years.
yeah. No, and it's true. You guys were thinking about the, John Pettibone building, what you're gonna do there. And, I know this conversation has gone around and around
Yeah,
about these
yeah,
buildings
yeah.
for, a decade. But I'm just trying to understand where we're going and how the Board of Ed is gonna find its home and, how we're gonna have the time to talk about.
That's gonna
these
be another
treatments.
conversation.
Yeah, that's coming up.
next. But before we go on, unless it's all due respect for the purpose of the record, you've asked for some documents, and we are going to expedite
Thank you.
those. We have 2 of those reports today. I've requested all of the correspondence from the year 2019. which is when the special education moved over to Sarah Noble pertaining to that. So you have that transparently. I was not the chair at the time, I was not the vice chair at the time, and Dr. Parker was the superintendent at the time. I'm not privy to those emails, but we're happy to get those over to you.
Thank you.
That is the last of the correspondence that you've asked. We met with the mayor today, and it was interesting, and we are committed to moving forward and doing what's best. And whatever you need, we will get it to you. Do not hesitate.
We won't.
Thank you.
We won't. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the permanent administrative offices. So we're continuing on, as we talked about before. We're not letting the ball drop with this. Obviously, the administrative offices need a permanent home. I've been speaking with Dr. Parlato, also with Wendy, Brian, facilities chair, as well. I've made a suggestion that we look at seriously the Century Brass property to put in a new building for the Board of Education. So we're kind of reviewing that opportunity, and I relay that as an opportunity because, as we just talked about before, for this to work, it's going to take everyone. It's going to start with the Board of Education, what their needs are going to be. Superintendent, really what her staff is going to need. We're going to talk about it there. We're also going to talk about it here with the town council. If the Board of Education deems, you know what, after we kind of looking at it and reviewing it, that kind of makes sense, that spot, you know, in all sorts of ways, then we can move forward on that. I did ask Jack, as we are looking at Century Brass, to move the DPW facility over to that area. Also, we have the fire building there as well. Yep. We're also looking at maybe moving the helipad there as well. We're also looking at solar and other energy components to drive revenue, because this is going to be a cost. So we did pencil in a spot as just a holding spot for this building, if it's so deemed. But the next steps, as we continue to do this, to continue to have the dialogue with Dr. Parlato and with her team and the board and the town, as we continue to move forward with that, but we're continuing to make steps. Does anybody have any questions?
So it's always on simmer.
So realistically, the time frame for that building, because I don't know if that, I mean, is that, what do you, for that building that hasn't even been, I mean, it's sort of a pie in the sky right now, but so what do you see that, what's a realistic time frame for them to get out?
I would say once the board and the superintendent decide this is where I think we're okay with being there, right? Then I think you're looking at probably, Jack, you can hold me if I'm wrong, because this is going to be its own independent building. It's not going to be a DPW facility. This probably would be one of the first buildings we would build on the campus. So you'd be talking with site work and everything else once it's approved, Jack, what, a year?
Probably like 18 months,
Yeah.
And speak for asking you,
Sure.
is the location problematic, or are you feeling that you're staying open-minded? What's
This just came about, in
Yeah.
all fairness, what, a couple weeks ago? We heard this for the first time. And like any large decision, I think the board approaches it with, our style is, let's go through the data, let's go through the time frame, let's have the administration submit and the board weigh in on what our true needs are. And by needs, I don't mean desks and chairs and things like that. There are some things that the board think of that might be a little bit different. Obviously, security. Obviously, how your access is to all of your buildings in the town, because the administrative offices must be in these buildings all the time. And when you move to one side of the town and you add on 10 more minutes to the other side to other schools, that can be problematic. Those are the type of things. But 100%, I personally, speaking for myself, I have no right on the base of the board. I think it would be disingenuous not to sit down and explore these options. I think it's our duty to do that, and we're happy to do that.
Wendy, would you say that the option of going back into a town building that's been used for something never for your offices is a good idea. I mean, I just look at it this way, how many times have we moved the Board of Ed? And other agencies have been moved around and around, and if we have an opportunity, and you just said you're willing to listen to it.
You have to listen. and-
Right,
and
an
the la-
opportunity to give you a place that is what, you want it to be. And I do know what you're saying about being near the schools, but remember that the schools on that side haven't had anybody near them.
There's a real challenge, and also.
And there's something to be said for them not having them near them.
100% that we need to go through that. I also really am hopeful that when and if we come to a conclusion, it's a town and board decision.
Right.
So 5 years from now, we're not arguing about why did we do this.
Right.
I don't care, as long as we can come to a consensus and get it going,
Yep, that's right.
period.
This should be a building that is built specifically for your use.
But there are needs.
will be your home
that
forever.
maybe I'm not aware of. It is not a definite. I think the discussion was just began.
Yeah.
It's Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, this just came about, this is a long, process, but I think it should be, however this is arranged to be part of it, I think there should be weigh in by the board, costs, we already heard a basic time frame, and go from there and start moving forward, because one works with the other. We're talking about two schools, East Street and Pettibone, two very monumental decisions, and now we're talking about a whole facility over Century Brass. That's a huge undertaking, and we're gonna need collaboration and people to work together.
But we're just
That's
talking about it now, so I don't think we should lose too much sleep yet.
No, but it takes time to put this together, and I think
got a
we're
lot
on the
of
right
time.
track. I
You
think
got
we're
a
on the
lot
right
of time.
track.
Some more than
I'm
others.
not, I know, thanks. I was just gonna say, we already know how many years we spent on this.
So I support the discussion, period.
That's great.
Where it goes, can't tell you, but I absolutely support it 100%.
Thanks, Wendy.
And lastly, as Wendy just kind of talked a little bit about too, is letting the public know itself, as we get more further along in these discussions, what the cost is going to be for the new building. And also on top of that, with all the new energy savings equipment that they have, that we've been able to do now on the town and the board side, we'll talk more about that next month, using what we've learned from those areas, whether it be solar, whether it be splitters, all sorts of different technologies to drive the costs down to make the buildings, whether it be the administrative offices or a DPW facility, that much more green and energy independent.
The future is ours.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what the next steps are, Mayor. I don't know how we move forward with your organization for these conversations, but just send it over to Dr. Parlato.
So next steps for everybody right now is, I know Facilities Director Matt Cunningham is kind of sketching out a little bit of what the interior needs and square footage needs would be. Once we get those, I'm hoping that it would be on a Board of Education agenda to start the discussion there, and then we'll continue the discussions on the town side. And the closer we become to more of this being where we agree that it should go, then I think we create a small subcommittee of council and of Board of Ed and Board of Finance
I would agree with
together
that.
to work on pretty much putting the finalities onto that.
Do you
Find
know
all the
if there's
pros and
other?
cons,
Exactly. Do you-
And that they're not gonna be the same probably, maybe they will, but we'll find out, and I don't think we can discuss it all tonight. You
No,
can.
but do you know if there's other locations that might be part of that equation, or right now we're focusing in on Century Brass?
I was asked for my opinion, so I said Century Brass.
Okay.
We can also look at the schools. We could look at, you and I looked at commercial property, and
Please don't even.
that was just way out of the
It-
ballpark
you know,
itself.
yeah.
But to me, when you look at the dynamics of something, not for today, but
Just in
when
case,
you're in-
because eventually
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
question is gonna come down the road. Well, what else did you look at?
Right.
And I'd hate to see that in the 11th hour and
I
have to have
agree.
people start all over.
Well, we
But
did
to
have
re-
a huge study done, Mayor, as you recall. All of the town properties, there was a whole committee did this a few years ago. Every single thing we own, whether it's a building or a piece of property. And so, there's right there, a whole bunch of stuff we could look at.
Yeah, the report is, I was on that committee.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
we have what we have.
And the big key, Tom, right, we'll break it out, cost per square foot. Brand new, 1932 building, 1950 some building, what the costs are per square foot on those to retrofit or build new. And any other locations, if anybody's watching out here, or any of the
That's
council
why I put
members?
it, that's
If
exactly
you
why
guys
I
think of
said it.
another location that you may think is good, we can always look at
That's
that as
exactly
well.
why I said it.
Well, I think it's
Well, I hate to
important
say it, but
for the
John's
square
right.
footage too. Once you know the square footage of the building, then you can figure it out. I know Pete and I were just going back and forth, and I was thinking about the old tennis courts at the old high school where they store some of this stuff there, maybe putting a building there, maybe 2 floors, whatever, you know, and having it there.
I've
But
heard
once
that
you-
too.
So once you have the footprint and we know where we can put the building, as opposed to, we don't know how big it is, then we can fill those dots in. And I agree, we should get members of the BOE. When you get everybody input, then the ideas can go back and forth better than just having one person try to think of it.
Because
And
with
once you
all
get-
due respect, sometimes y'all are busy, we're busy.
Right.
We see things with a different lens. We don't know everything that goes on over your side of the table, nor do you, in all due respect. So when you get all the same people in the same room and you hear different scenarios, sometimes you view things differently.
Right, and that's when committees work, because you and I were in the same committee, and we were different things. This way we can go back to our constituents and say, hey, this is what we're doing over here. And so they're not left in the dark, because we can go back here and say, oh yeah, I was in the committee, this is what we talked about, oh, that's great. And then you go back to the BOE, hey, I spoke to these guys, this is what we're talking about. And then when you get everybody on the same page, it's easier to communicate.
Is Pettibone off the table? Just, I gotta throw it out there, just, and we don't need to
Absolutely,
prolong
that's-
this conversation, but
No,
is that like gone, or is
no,
that still in the cards?
That's something to look at. My thought process has always been, when you're looking at square foot costs, and then over the lifetime of a building, as I posed to Jack too, is, does it make more economical sense to build if the cost per square foot is cheaper on a new build, and you're gonna have all of that energy saving equipment, versus retrofitting a older building that's not gonna, and it can't fit to absolutely what maybe Dr. Parlato and the administrative offices need. So then you're kind of squeezing in, and retrofitting is efficient. So those are the numbers that we're gonna come up working with them, so that we do have those options. So when the public does ask, well, if or if not, why not Pettibone? Why not East Street School? Why not this? We have a definitive answer to
We have
that.
the costs and the reasons for costs.
And I'm sure you know this respectively, what a reimbursement may be on old versus new. That's
Correct.
huge.
Oh my
Because that
God.
is a large percentage that's not
Yep.
calculated into the overall construction costs. It's reimbursed on the dollar for which property you invest in.
Right.
And that's, that's important.
I mean, this building could be a net zero energy building very easily if it was done brand new construction at a much cheaper per square foot cost than retrofitting any of these old buildings, by a long shot.
Absolutely.
But
By a long shot.
we're in the process of moving forward.
You know where to find the facilities chair, the board, and Dr. Parlato, but I urge you, please, I know this is a difficult time. Tensions can be a little bit difficult. Please, reach out. You'll get an answer. Okay?
Thank you, Wendy.
We appreciate your communication.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Dr. Parlato.
Thank you.
Are we needed anymore tonight?
Let me hang up for some more fun.
No.
We'll take care of the passengers. Economic development,
Okay.
is that you?
Yep. Just a couple of quick updates on economic development. First, at our Economic Development Committee meeting, Chairman Buck Wykeway, and I'd like to thank Jay Umberger, as we brought in Alex from the FDIC, who came to our meeting to talk about some educational opportunities through the FDIC. Also, there's monies through what's called CRA, and Tom, you know what that is? The Community Reinvestment Act, that all banks, if you're taking in deposits, should be lending within the community or giving back within the community that they serve. There's a lot of internet banks that do take New Milford depository dollars, but don't give CRA funding to those residents or institutions in New Milford. So we are going to first be writing those institutions, and then with the FDIC, we're going to be bringing in, probably virtually, asking them to attend a meeting, and then asking them what they can do to help continue economic vitality in New Milford by fulfilling their CRA requirement. So it was a great a meeting, and I'd like to thank the commission and Jay Umberger especially for bringing in Alex at the FDIC.
How are they able to not be part of that?
Because they're not brick and mortar. So
So
it's,
the regulation was never written to be what we have
well,
today?
I think you have a limited number of staff to like be checking
Yeah,
on things
yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
exactly, right.
So, and Jay, with his experience,
Right.
not only being former president of a bank
Yep.
locally, but also working within the FDIC, I think he saw that as a great
Oh,
opportunity
right.
for us.
Excellent.
And want to
That's
thank him
nice.
for that. Also, real quick, we're going to have a new restaurant where Zargoza was, called Sparrow. That'll be opening up, I believe, sometime in September. And that gentleman that owns the Owl Restaurant in New Preston, this is going to be his.
John.
Yep,
Grove.
this is going to be his restaurant, so we're very excited to have him. I was talking to Gary Goldring. I believe the Cuse is going to be opening up next month. And for those that don't know, that's going to be down on the corner where Duke's used to be. And they make some outstanding barbecue, and we're excited to have them come in. And I'll just leave it at that real quick because I know we have other stuff to get to. If
Also,
anybody
the
has
queue
any
is on Bank
questions.
Street,
Yep.
just so people know
We're,
that, yeah.
we're
That's the whole point.
yeah. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Next, so we're going to do just a quick ARPA update for the council. As we all know, we have, I think we have through appropriated, I think the only thing left until we get additional funding back from some of the projects we're doing, I believe $108 left. So,
$108?
yeah, it's left.
We spent
Yeah.
108.
108 left. Okay.
Are you
So
sure?
just a quick update on some of the things that we've
How
done
did
so
we miss
far is the nonprofit appropriation of $125,000 that was given to nonprofits and $5,000 grants. That's totally done, sold out, so to speak. So thank you. Child care assistance, we appropriated $120,000 or $100,000 there. And right now we have spent about $12,000, so it's about 11.7, actually 11,761. So that's 11.76% so far in use.
Who's in control of that expenditure?
So right now, that is, we've told all the child care businesses in New Milford about the opportunity for those that had people within their care that had an instance of COVID to reach out to their parents and apply. And this is what we've got so far. I know we've sent that out several times, but that's something we're going to keep looking at. Business loans and grants, we appropriated $395,000. We've done $300,000 so far, so that's 75.95. I believe there's about 7 or 8 that have just about come in for those as well, or just about coming in. So that number should go up the next time we talk. As far as for the fire marshal, the backpacks, the software, the iPads, the radios, that was a $175,000 appropriation. We're waiting for some of the stuff to come in, stuff that's been spent so far that has come in that hasn't been on back order is $78,897.17. Gaylordsville Fire Department, we appropriated $312,421.25. About 94% of that has been expended. Some of it is material shortages back ordered. Hopefully that will be completed. The bridge at Harrybrook Park, that was a $126,000 appropriation. They spent $83,366 and gave us back the return funds, of which we re-appropriated. The Housatonic Valley Associated Water Safety Program, that was for $3,034. In IT for upgrades and for cybersecurity increases, that was $292,423. So far, we spent $257,156.46. We continue to use that and work with the providers for that one. The library was $83,774, and that was for furniture, some staffing, the makerspace. Pretty much the furniture and staffing has been completed, And now with the new librarian, we're looking at the new makerspace equipment that they're looking to get with that additional funding that's there. The new Milford ambulance was the $150,000 for the EMS operations manager. We've gone through about half of that, as that's a 2-year program. The fire department burn building, that money's pretty much been used up. That actually, the building itself, I think, is coming towards the middle of, or to the end of this month or the beginning of September. And that will be placed at the Century Brass site, and they're working on that. As far as the Northville Fire Department, they've expended all of their $104,713. They've gotten everything so far. The Park and Rec Disc Golf Course, that's been 100% used. I know Dan's there, and so is Graham. That's been a tremendous success for all those people coming out and playing disc golf course.
Yeah, it's what we expected, the amount of people visiting Fire Valley to play that. Very popular, more than I ever expected, so, you know,
Do
we're
you
very
remember
happy.
the young man coming here years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us.
And he actually, Katie, right, Dan, when they were doing it, he actually came and volunteered and helped build it.
Oh, that's great.
That was amazing.
Who would have thought?
The outdoor movie theater that we purchased, we used it, was it one time last year? Because we got it in late, Dan?
And then we have a couple planned for
We have a couple planned for this fall. It's going to be awesome. And then we have the police department. We did the traffic signs, which we've already gotten and are using. Our de-escalation simulator, we've been using that already. We're one of the few towns that actually has that
Have any
for the
other
police
towns
department.
used it?
I think there's other towns. I got to ask the chief. Let's ask him that. I'm not going to. Scheduling software, which is bringing them in actually to the 21st century. They're almost done beta testing it, and they're going to go live the end of the month, which is great. And then they got their 4 medical kits and external defibrillators. Also, we gave money for the sober housing that we talked about before. That's already completed. The reservoir dam. Jack, can you talk a little bit about the reservoir dam?
Yeah, we've hired another firm to do the design work, and they are finishing up three options. One is to put a retaining wall on the dam side of the top of the dam. What they're trying to do is they have to give it more storage. It doesn't meet the current standards. When the town voted, you had that meeting, one of the priorities was that you wanted to maintain the dam as a recreational area. I have told them I don't really like the first option, but I mean, they need to finish it, present it to us for cost. The second one is they would again do the retaining wall on the water side of the dam, but they would pick up behind that retaining wall and they would put a backfill on it, which would in essence raise the height of the dam. And then they would put riprap on the side of the retaining wall toward the water side. Again, I told them I didn't like that option that much, but they need to complete it so we can look at the cost. The third option is what they do is they would raise the dam using, essentially they would be tiles that would go under fill. And they would raise the level of the dam probably 2 feet, but you'd only notice if you did an elevation. If you go up there and say, yeah, it's a little higher than it was, but it would still be topsoil, grass. The tiles would extend on the back side of the dam going down. We have to widen the base of the dam. The base of the dam does not meet any of the current standards. What I mean by that, we will be adding fill on the back side of the dam, so the slope will be much more gradual. One of the things we're trying to accomplish with that is that we want a pollinator garden back there. We've been doing that. We want it to become all natural. We also want to maintain the walkways that the Boy Scouts and everybody have put in over the years and going over the spillway. We've looked at the spillway. Now, it's interesting that since I've been here, I've been told how bad the design of the spillway is, and it doesn't meet any standards. It's interesting that I have photographs the day of what was that, July 10th, the rainstorm, and the spillway. If you've been there, you've got the first spillway, you've got a retaining area, there's 2 pipes that go off, and then there's another spillway for the water to go down. It never breached the second spillway. So it never never approached the top of the dam. So, it right there is, I think, is in defense of what I'm looking at. We will have to change the actual spillway itself, the age of it and the condition needs to be repaired. If you go up there, that steel structure is not intended to be there. That's repair. That will come out. We will probably broaden the spillway another 5 to 7 feet and allow the water to cascade over that. We are probably going to do away with the pipes. And then if you look back at it, there's a channel that was been there since, I believe, the flood, and that will be have a retaining material on it to keep it from eroding, and the water will cascade down there. So that's the three options we're looking at. Again, all of our comments to the consultants have been, we want to maintain it as a recreational area. We want it to look as natural as we can, as it does today.
The next is social services, the Hope Fund. So they've used, of the 100,000 so far, they've used 29,885.99. Then we've also given 100,000 to the Good Samaritan Fund, and they've expended 22,721.29 so far. We also appropriated them having a new freezer for the food bank, and that's been very much needed, and that was fully expended. We also did the Sullivan Farm roof barn, which was tremendously needed, and they thanked us for that. Also, the farm crew supervisor manager position was ARPA funded. This is the second year that we're in for doing that. The capital home improvement program that helps stabilize those that can't afford, whether it be a oil burner or a roof or a sewer or septic or whatever. We actually put that loan on title, and then that's at 0%. And then once they refinance or sell the home, that it goes back into the pot, and we just keep refinancing it. As of right now, so far in that particular program, we've used about $12,000 for that as well. Waterwitch had their funding. They've spent of the $107,205, they have some back-ordered stuff. So far, they've expended $95,286.90. We have the youth counselors positions that were through the youth agency. That was for a 2-year program. We're into the second year for that as well. We did the roof repair and HVAC for the VFW. That's been fully completed. United Way, we did the Healthy Savings program for New Milford residents, and that's been fully completed there. The RV&A, we did the health program contributed for New Milford. That's been given. And then Camilla's Cupboard for the student summer program, which we'd given $40,000. That we had fully expended as well. So that's kind of the update on the ARPA.
So, Mayor, could you put this, I mean, it's nice to hear you say it, but could you put that out to the public in some sort of condensed,
Absolutely.
maybe not that? And I really think the burning
And I'm gonna
question is,
send
what are we
another.
gonna do with the $108?
Right. Or,
'Cause-
well, we might get more back.
Might get more back, yeah. Might get more back.
I don't know how we managed to keep 100.
108.
Compound interest.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe that'll
Okay.
be enough to do the boiler.
Don't hold your breath.
Boiler at East Street.
No, or hold your
It
breath.
could help, it could help.
How would this go out, the information?
What's that?
That's up to the mayor. I mean, you could put it on social media, like you do other
Put
things.
it out, we'll put it on the town website
You know, if
too,
you
so
put,
people
yeah,
can see
put it on the website in a chart form or whatever.
That'd be great.
Perfect.
So,
Next is the
Oh,
Park and
right.
Rec Administrator position.
all right.
We have Dan and Graham come up.
All right.
And
Is Greg here?
Yep,
Oh,
Greg's
yeah.
here as well.
Good evening, everybody.
And what's really good news, this is a new position that's within the Park and Rec team. Kind of good news in a way, as we've had our longtime, one of the Park and Rec team has now decided to take a new position into the police department, was an open records clerk position. So in talking with Dan and with Greg, one of the things looking to kind of retool the Park and Rec team, what one of the things, they've done a tremendous job to go kind of the next level. What were some of the kind of the needs that were needed within that department? And go ahead, Dan.
Over the past few years, we've tried to revamp the Park and Rec department. It started with Lindeming Park, and then it changed with the Program and Special Events Director job description. We changed that. We've really tried to offer more programs and improve our park systems. And since this has been happening, as you can see by this year, our revenues were way above and beyond what I thought we'd bring in. But with that brings a lot more responsibilities and work for the office. So with our secretary moving to the police department, we thought it was a great time to try to upgrade this job description, give this person, whoever applies for it, more responsibility, more duties, to help us out in the office. So that's pretty much the reasoning behind it. We just have a lot of work in the department that we just need somebody to help and take on some more responsibility to give us a helping hand.
Greg, can you talk a little bit about the position?
Yeah, so what we're looking for in this position, as Dan had said, is going to be helpful in the office. It's going to be promoted to a spot where it'll oversee the full-time office clerical staff, but also assist Graham in getting out into the field. So what we have currently before this job description, we've got 2 union positions, and when we're doing some of these programs and events at night, you either are doing comp time or you're doing overtime. This being a non-union position, being responsible for being an assistant to Graham and being out for these programs, we're creating more of a support system. So this position is going to be both on the clerical and oversight of the office capacity, but also being more participative for all of our programs and events.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, you go.
Hi, Dan, how are you?
Hey.
So, on your one answer, you said that, revenue has been up. Where do you see that more on what part, on the Lindeming side, or?
Well, we did see that in the beginning. Ever since we did the renovation, every year it's gone up.
Right.
And even COVID, we didn't know what to expect, and it even went up there. And then
Right.
after COVID, it's still growing.
Right.
But we've seen since we changed the job description for the program person, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of programs that we're offering, so which is bringing a lot more revenue and a lot more people trying out our programs. So it's both sides of the department.
'Cause, I mean, I've been up to the lake and I've seen that, it's busier than ever.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that as well, and people fishing and stuff like that. Maybe that's just post-COVID and everybody just wants to get out and that kind of thing, and the programs. And the footnote with the disc, I was up there for a party with Clatter Valley, and I was amazed how many people are playing that disc golf.
I know.
And I remember when I was on the Park and Rec Board, the gentleman had come in and we were all skeptical about it, and I can't believe how well it's taken off and
Yeah,
how many
it really
people
has.
play it. So
So
it
We're
was,
skeptical.
So
Shame on us for
Yeah.
being
So
skeptical.
Dougie, just as a generalization, so we had budgeted this past year, in the year 2023, for revenues for Park and Rec, both the programs and then the parks itself was, I think it was around 573,000, and revenues was 691,000.
that's awesome. That's
So
good to hear.
that's a testament of keeping the parks up, all the new program that we have going on, and definitely they did a great job hitting those numbers. So
And I
that's
remember
fantastic.
there was some lean years to where, you had to get rid of some things because people weren't participating and we were scrambling to get money, but it's good to hear the other side of it. So kudos to you, Dan, and your staff for finding the right niche and to get people in the things that they like to do. So congratulations on the revenue increase.
Katie?
My question is, I can also tell you that from all the parents that I talked to through the programs, that they really like some of the programs that you've increased and expanded on. The kids love them, and if the kids love them, the parents love them. This is really probably more for you, Greg, too, that the education part, I'm a little confused. So a high school diploma or equivalent with 4 years' experience in secretarial work. Associate degree or BSBA with 2 years' experience in park and rec secretarial work preferred. So it's kind of like, so any secretarial work is okay, and if you have an associate's degree and 2 years' experience, that's good too. I guess one just seems like a kind of a big jump from the other one.
Well, so 4 years of secretarial work, any industry, it would be acceptable for this. 2 years of park and rec experience with a degree is also good, so.
Yeah, but how do you equate those two things? Because a secretary, I mean, I think we say clerical now. I don't want to misspeak here, but I do believe that it's just like stewardess, we now say clerical. So I'm going to say clerical because I can tell you of people I know who spent 24 years doing clerical work, and there's no way that I would associate them to have the experience of someone who had a BS or a BA and had worked in Park and Rec. I mean, I know you're going to interview these people. I just think that it might bring people who are maybe not as experienced as you might want them to be. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, it just seemed to me. I mean, I always like what you write for people. I just thought it was a little at odds. If you know what I mean. Otherwise, Dan, you like this, all these things on here? This is one of the highest number of duties of, I think, and I was on 2 committees, one with Mary Jane, going through and revamping some of our job description. Remember that, Greg?
I do.
But I have to say, I was trying to count them while I was listening to Dan, and I lost track.
I got a little intimidated, yeah.
So,
That's quite the person who's gonna have to take this job.
I think, definitely, I think we might have to add that $108 to this job.
Well, no crawling is not involved.
I saw,
So
I
there's
know.
no crawling in the job.
I often, yes, yeah, you're right. And depth perception is constantly needed.
Any other questions for Dan, Graham, Greg? We have a
Dan,
motion.
you think this is, covers everything you need?
I
Graham,
I
you
did.
think so?
You know, we really spelled it out, so what the type of duties that we currently do and plus additional ones, and I think it hits on what we're looking for.
So Graham, this would be a person who reports to you,
I believe to myself and Dan as well, yeah.
and the current clerical staff would come under this person?
Under this person,
So
yes.
there's continuity between a person that's been there about a year and a half or so. Well, of course, we have Dan who's been there since birth, so. Yeah, good. Yeah, I was just gonna.
Do we ask salary or?
What's the salary
The bracket?
range here?
So, great question.
What's the
So the
bracket?
salary is scheduled to be $50,000 for this position to start. And one of the-
Non-union, right?
Non-union. And one of the good things about this is we're not looking at filling the Secretary 2 position, which has been vacated. The cost differential for this is actually, it's a benefit to the town by about $3,000
Yeah,
or so.
about a wash, okay.
So it's really a wash. And we'll also save on overtime as well.
So,
Now you have to find the right person.
right.
Now we have to find the right person.
And you know, really, I mean, you should know this, you know more than I do by far about what goes on in the HR world, but isn't it really clerical now?
It is clerical, yes.
And just remove the apostrophe.
We'd like to have some he, him, and them, they, and she, her, all types of people. And I'm not making fun of that, I'm just
No.
saying is that secretarial, to me, is a sort of
You
demeaning.
think
Yeah.
somebody with this many, needs at this many qualifications, $50,000 would be a little low, you might have to find, I mean.
Well,
you're
if you
talking
really
about
read them.
800 and something change.
See, now, if you really read them, I mean, types, letters, and memos.
$50,000 is not a lot of money
Tom, we
for a
have a motion.
40-hour job with all these
I was
qualifications. That's just
thinking
my
about
statement.
Some of them
There has to be,
receiving-
I mean, obviously.
Well,
is
we'll
there
find
a-
out.
A gray area to where you
We'll
can go
find
higher
out.
with that, or?
I really feel as though the price point for this position, we're gonna be able to find the right person. If we find that we're not finding the right pool of candidates,
Right.
it's something I would bring back to the mayor to
Right.
say, okay,
Because-
we're either gonna need to retool the expectations.
No, I
Some of
understand.
these are,
No, I understand, but with the qualification you're asking for and the
Necessary.
pay you're giving can differentiate
I know,
a
me
person to where $50,000 these days is not a whole lot of money.
no, I'm not arguing.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Park and Rec Administrator position as presented tonight by
Second.
Park and Rec.
With a few clerical
Yeah.
Yes, I will update the clerical.
You'll add the,
Clerical.
and would you add the salary also?
I can add the salary to the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
It'll go with the posting
That's
as
what
well.
we usually have, and your other
Any,
boilerplate.
and Paul seconded?
I did, oh, or Paul did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next,
you very
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Good work.
next executive session. Ken?
Yes, we'd like to move into executive session and inviting attorneys D'Onofrio, John Tower, Randy DeBello,
Randy.
and Jack Healy, our DPW chairman. Hello. Yeah, you can sit there. Good idea.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, okay.
All those in favor to go into executive session?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael? Okay. Okay, returning to regular session, in executive session, no motions were made and no votes were taken. I move that we return to regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. We did it.
Okay. I'd like to move that we authorize the mayor to execute an agreement to discuss terms and settle standard demo litigation and travelers insurance litigation, and the terms as discussed during executive, with terms. On the terms, that's, I say, I'm sorry, on the terms that were discussed during executive session.
We have a motion? Second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mike,
Thank you, everyone.
tell me when it's off, because Hillary?